Mala allowed me to discuss a short work that we presented a while ago in the school. I don't have any like PowerPoints or anything like that. I will give you a brief introduction to it, and so it goes like this. Perhaps I can put it up here somehow. Then I would have to. Okay, that's going to be a long. So the book goes like this, if they can see it. It's called To Every Woman Who Believes in Allah. Every woman who believes in Allah. The original name was titled لِكُلِّ فَتَى تُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ. So you can see it over there like this. And if I can do this. Right. So, if you come to read the book, I think you will find the cover design quite symbolic. I have a very good friend who's a graphic designer. So, and many other things. So he always does this. And I've sat with him through two of these like sessions where he does these book covers and he really like pours his heart into it. And his name, Shadli Salat. Shadli Salat. Yeah. So he really like pours his heart into these designs. And if you know anything about designers, then they're very passionate about like how they design symbolize the meanings of the text and things like that. So it is symbol to something that comes in the book. So let us tell you a bit of the story of this. لِكُلِّ فَتَى تُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ. لِكُلِّ فَتَى تُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ, as you will not be surprised by now, is a text that is authored by our martyr scholar Muhammad Saeed Ramadan al-Bouthi. And we've made it one of our life goals to translate his library. So he has a lot of books. He has like 50, 60 books that he's published. His most major works have been translated to English and have been published by Dawrah works the like of his famous book in Sirah, Fiqh Sirah an-Nabawiyya, right, which is translated by the famous translator, extremely proficient, like the best translator of his works, I think, that are out there, Nancy Roberts. I believe Nancy Roberts to be a pen name. She is Muslim. I think she resides in Jordan and she's still alive. So Nancy Roberts translates two of his works. The one work that she translates of his is called The Jurisprudence of Prophetic Biography. The Jurisprudence of Prophetic Biography. So what he does over there is that he explains the Sirah, but he takes out two types of lessons in the Sirah. The first type of lesson that he takes out is lessons of Dawrah. Lessons of like the development of Islam developing as a mission, right? And how, when we look at the Sirah, we can see different steps in the mission and how to administrate Islam at that point in the mission. So he will break Islam, he will break the mission of Islam up into four main categories, right? Islam, ad-da'watu sirran, ad-da'watu jahran, ad-da'watu qitalan, and then he has a second stage also, ad-da'watu qitalan. So the first is calling towards Allah secretly. So this would be the first few years of Makkah. Then ad-da'watu jahran, that would be the latter years of Makkah, right? Then al-bad'u bil-qital, starting to fight, but to fight defensively. This would be the first few years of Medina, starting from the second year, which would be Badr. And then also calling towards Allah, incorporating war, but then starting wars, right? So there is a period in Islam where the Prophet ﷺ, he commanded that wars be ensued, right? Battles be ensued, meaning that we preemptively fought other communities, right? So if ever you thought that Islam wasn't spread by the sword, think again, right? Islam wasn't spread by the sword. It's a nuanced discussion, right? It's like a straw man for people to say Islam was spread by the sword, wasn't spread by the sword. The nature of societies of that time was that wars took place in a very different way from which wars take place now, and wars do take place now, right? So this is his first book, Fiqh Sirah Nabawiyya, Nancy Roberts translated. The second amazing book that she translated also is a book called Al-Mar'a, the woman, Bayna Tughyan al-Gharbi wal-Nizam al-Ilahi. Woman between the transgression of between the transgression of the West and divine law. So in this book, he speaks about like 4 main ideas around the woman. The first idea that he takes a large portion of the book of is the idea of equality. He speaks about equality. What is equality? Is the equality? How does it look in the Islamic paradigm, right? Then he speaks about women in the workplace. Then he speaks about women in society. Then he speaks about contentious matters around women, such as needing a wali, the mahar, not owning the right to divorce. He speaks about all these issues, right? So it's an interesting book. The book is out in translation. There's a brother, he lives in Lansdowne, his name is Adib. He sells, I don't know, I haven't seen him sell this book, but he normally has the good English works. So you can try to find out of this guy. Other works of his that have been translated into English is the recent one that I saw now, like published very recently, is a book called Allah Madhabiyya, not having a madhab. So he speaks about the phenomena that is becoming more apparent where people are against madahib. Another book that he translates, what that is translated is the Great Existential Realities, has been translated into English. This is like about a 300-400 page book. Mullah Zakaria teaches it in Du'ai. It's considered to be one of the difficult books. In my respect, Mullah Zakaria teaches the most difficult subjects in the school. They can debate me on it. And he teaches 2 of Sheikh Muhammad Sayyid Ramadan al-Buti's books. The one book is Kubra al-Yaqiniyat al-Kawniyya, which is the Great Existential Realities, a book in Aqidah. But he speaks a little bit about dialectic materialism. He speaks a little bit about atheism. He speaks a little bit about research methodology. It's a very interesting book. Another book of his that have been translated by another set of his students that were with him in Syria at the time. And regarding Sheikh Muhammad Sayyid Ramadan al-Buti and his contemporaries, we say like we're a day late and a dollar short. You know that saying? A day late and a dollar short. My teacher, Sheikh, you might know him, Sheikh Ibrahim Moos. Sheikh Ibrahim Moos, one of the senior scholars, young in age, but he's senior in knowledge. Sheikh Ibrahim Moos is one of the direct students of Sheikh Muhammad Sayyid Ramadan al-Buti. He sat in his classes when he was over there in Egypt. There was one book that I was reading with him. The book was published in 1997. He bought the book in 1997 whilst he was there with the author. I was born in 1997. So there's another set of books that is translated by one of his other students, Anas, and there's another set of books that's translated by another of his students, Mahdi Locke. Mahdi Locke translates, I think, about 3 of his books. One of them is it's a book about civilization, right? But it's more like on the Islamic, what you call epistemology, Islam's theory of knowledge. So he translates this book, Mahdi Locke. And then I think there's another book that is called Ihya Jawhar al-Islam, Enlivening the Spirit of Islam. Mahdi Locke also translates this book. Then there's 2 or 3 other books that have been translated by Anas. And then there's like about 3-4 other books that alhamdulillah I've rendered to English. And there's like still 50, 60, 70, and not maybe like 70 other books of his that haven't yet been so we intend to tackle the books one by one as we knock them along. One of them that myself and Mullah Zakaria was editing, that we hope to be released in this year. It's called Al-Islam wa Mushkilatu Shabab, Islam and the Challenges of Youth. I think the book is outdated. I think a lot of his books are outdated. But when he published the books, they were like the leading thought. The thing is that we live in a very, very fast-paced world. So a lot of time when scholars will tackle ideas will quickly become outdated. and their opinions will quickly become outdated, right? But one of the valuable, I would say, one of the benefits of interacting with the works of these scholars is that a scholar like Sheikh Muhammad Sayyid Ramadan al-Bouti is writing about feminism in the 90s. So if he's writing about feminism in the 90s, he's writing about first wave feminism. So if he's writing about first wave feminism, then he's tackling the issue when it started. So when you read his books about materialism, dialectic materialism, and all of this, then the arguments that he presents might be outdated in relation to what exists now, but you will get a skeleton of how to deal with these issues. And that's what you need. What you need in the modern world is, you don't need all the answers. You need, they say every science has an internal logic. So if you can understand the internal logic of that matter, like the core issues of how that thing exists, then no matter how much development happens around that, you will still understand those issues. It's very much like quantum physics. There's a few experiments that, okay, maybe that's like a bit of like a farce. So it's like math, right? So in mathematics, I'm not talking about real math, not arithmetic. So arithmetic is like counting, but mathematics is logic, it's formulas, right? So there's a few like formulas, like core formulas. If you are to understand them, then you will understand the world of mathematics. It's what it revolves around. It's like soccer, for example. If you now I had one friend, Musadi, was a very good soccer player, but he could do no skills, but he was a very good soccer player. Why? Because he knew he had good ball control, and he knew how to dribble, and he could run, and he could control himself with the ball. That's all he needed, and he needed to kick the ball accurately. So if you can combine that in a dynamic way and play against any team, then you can beat the team, right? So the same with these ideas, these new ideas that come about, they stem from the same types of inconsistencies. So if you can learn the core inconsistencies, or better than that, you can learn the core truths. If you learn the core truths, then everything that comes at you at the world, you weigh them against the core truths. So a person might come with something like evolution, for example, big debate. So we say, does evolution have to shake my faith? Let's say, let's look at the core realities of my faith and compare it to the core theories that makes up evolution. Is there anything to contradict my faith? If you come to research, you will see that there isn't, right? It doesn't mean that you have to believe in evolution, but it also doesn't mean that you have to deny it. And if you don't have to deny it, and you don't have to believe in it, then evolution is just as the color of the face that you're wearing or the scarf that you're wearing, right? It just exists. It's there, it's a theory, it exists. It doesn't shake my faith, it doesn't, right? If you wear blackface, make you more pious than if you're going to wear whiteface? No, right? Evolution just wants to explain to us how things happen, right? So whether you want to accept that that's the way things happen or not, it doesn't matter. Does accepting evolution mean that there's no God? No, it doesn't mean that. Does rejecting evolution mean that there's no God? No, it doesn't mean that, right? So why did we say all of this? We said all of this because Sheikh Muhammad Saeed Ramadan al-Bouti rahimahullah ta'ala is an example of a very traditional scholar, extremely traditional. He's what they call an usuli, right? An usuli is the person who works with like, you get the products of law, and then you get the tools that you use to produce those laws. So he's like a tool maker, you know, the person who's an expert at using the tools that produce law. That's Sheikh Muhammad Saeed Ramadan al-Bouti, right? And Mullah Zakaria is also very much the same. So it's not here, but it's fine. We can say Mullah Zakaria because Mullah teaches like two of these most difficult books, right? So they say, عند ذكر الصالحين تنزل الرحمة. When you mention the pious people, then Allah sends mercy. Maulana is pious. So part of our Islamic education is not only to know facts. Part of the Islamic education is to know the people of the path. So we say, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Allah guide us on the straight path. Sirat al-ladina, the path of those who. the path is embodied by people. So when you know the people of the path, then you know then you begin to know the realities of that path. And you begin to know the realities of the path. That's why the Sahaba, in explaining the path to other communities, they could say, Kunu mithlana, be like us. Be like us. Right? Why? Because the straight path is a path of men. And we are those men. So this is a strange confidence that you see from the companions. Because it's that same community from whom there are those amongst them who say what? Nafaqa Hanzala, Nafaqa Hanzala. Hanzala has become a munafiq. Right? The same those whom, like Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha and Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, they would say things like, I wish my mother never gave birth to me. I wish I was a blade of grass to be eaten and done away with. No reckoning for me. How fortunate are not the birds? They can fly, they eat, and they fill their bellies, and they pass away, and they have no reckoning to fear. Yeah, these were men and women, right? Quality people. And so they were so fearful about their deeds. But when they had so much confidence in the Islam that they were trying to practice, that they say, look, in terms of what we're trying over here, you can try the same thing. And you will have equal opportunity to paradise like we have. Kunu mithlana, be like us. Right? So that's why we speak about the author and authors and scholars, and right? So that we can understand who are the people of the path. Who are the people of the path? And they say what? They say, min amanatil ilm insabuhu ila ahlihi. You see, from the duties that are entrusted to the person that receives knowledge is to attribute the knowledge that he receives to the people from whom he receives his knowledge. Right? That's why we have the idea of isnad. Right? Isnad, asnada yusnidu isnadan. Right? Isnad is a process. The process of naming your men. Right? Like when we were in the class in Ramadan, and Maulana Zakaria was also happened to be given the class, and then he was speaking about hadith. So before he spoke about hadith, so I said, Maulana, sammaw lana rijalakum. Challenge. He said, Maulana, name us your men. So Maulana gave us his sanad from himself to Maulana Taha to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rijal. Right? Men. People. Characters of Islam. Right? So that's why we mentioned this scholar, Shaykh Muhammad Sayyid Ramadan al-Bhuti. So the book we have over here speaks about, originally, the book is predominantly fiqh. And not only fiqh, the book is a very intense type of fiqh. Right? He discusses two main matters he discusses over here. He discusses for about 40, 50 pages, he discusses hijab. It doesn't discuss the benefits of hijab and why you must cover yourself. And no, he speaks about the most intricate fiqhi masail about hijab. And then he speaks about inheritance, right? He speaks about the most intricate fiqhi masail about inheritance. So those parts of the book you won't find over here. You won't find in here, right? If you want that part, make a private class. You can come to the class. Right? And you write the entry exam. If you pass entry exam, then you can discuss those masail, right? But what he has in the beginning, like he has in the beginning of every one of his books, is what you call a muqaddimah, right? A preamble, a pre-discussion. So this publication that we have over here is a pre-discussion of the book. And in this pre-discussion, he speaks about the moral responsibility of women. And it doesn't speak about it from a point of like, it's not like he's, how can I say, he's not scaling you out. It's not the uitgeskellery book. And women are like this. That's not the book. He's saying, in summary, what he tells us over here is that in society, there are gates, right? There are metaphysical gates of morality. And when these gates are closed, then the community is moral. And when these gates are open, then the community is immoral. And the people, the only people, or let us say the the main gatekeepers of these moral gates are females. And the reason he gives is because this is a responsibility that Allah has discharged women. It's as simple as that. And so in the beginning of the book, he tells us that, look, I'm writing here to believing women. And I'm not writing to women whom they say Allah's name, but they don't really believe. I'm also not writing to women whom they might make dhikr and go to dhikrs, but they haven't had moments with Allah in which they had time to convince themselves that I really believe in Allah. He says, I'm speaking to the women that have deeply rooted belief in Allah. And my message goes to them. My message goes to them. So he's putting up a prerequisite, but it's not a prerequisite to block women out. It's a prerequisite to make you step up. So that's, you can look at a prerequisite in one of two ways, isn't it, sir? You say, I can't buy a house, my credit score. Or you can say, I need to get my credit score up so I can buy my house. It's a bad example, but it's, it's a reality. You can say, look, I can't eat because I don't have money. Or you can say, I need to get money so that I can eat. Right? Or you can say, the book is not for me because I haven't yet reached there in faith. Or you can say, I'm working towards that level of faith. So the book is also for me. You understand? And why must men read the book? Men must read the book because there's 2 paragraphs that will tell you what is your responsibility. And you have to read the whole book so that you can get to those 2 paragraphs. I won't tell you where it is. Right? It's a very short book. It's a very short book. And to be honest, if I had it my way, then these works, like I would have given them out to people for free. Right? If I had it my way, these works I would have given, because this is like, you see, there's a knowledge, this spiritual knowledge, this is wajib knowledge. Right? So one of the things I was saying at the school when we spoke about this book is that what I learned from Mullah Khalil I've always wanted to be Mullah Khalil's student. I was Mullah Khalil's student in Darul Naim, but it's very different when you come to a class and you say, Mullah Yahya teaches me, in comparison to like when I sit with you in your private time and you prepare to take that time out because I'm worthy enough to be a student to you, right? So for many, when I was in Darul Naim, I used to approach Maulana a lot to be a student, but to no avail. But fortunately, I was the student of his teacher, Maulana Ali Gauda. So Maulana Ali Gauda commanded him to sit with me. So he was my teacher by force, right? So we used to sit together. But I had not spent much time with Maulana Khalil. And in this year, I've spent a lot of time with Maulana Khalil. And one of the things I learned from Maulana Khalil over the time that I've been spending with him is like, so sometimes it's said that I have a bit of information about Islam. And what I'm learning every day is like how to contextualize that information, right? And one of the greatest people from whom I learned how to contextualize this information is Maulana Khalil, right? So initially, there are other parts of this book that exist in my computer, but owing to Maulana Khalil's influence over me, they remain in my computer, and this is the part that you get. And I believe that this is the part that you need. I believe that this is the part that you need. Why? Because you can have a whole lot of technical discussions. You can have a whole lot of technical discussions. But what does that have to do with the fact that you're wearing a scarf, you're not wearing a scarf? You're covering your aura, you're not covering your aura. All those technical discussions will not help you to put on a hijab in the morning. This discussion over here about your moral responsibility towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's the discussion that's going to help you, right? The same like the male who's non-abusive. All the discussion about women's rights will not help you be non-abusive, will not help you empower women. Your moral responsibility towards Allah will help you not be abusive. Your moral responsibility towards Allah will help you empower women in a way that Islam wants to empower them, right? So this is the discussion that Shaykh Muhammad Sayyid Ramadan al-Bouti rahimahullah ta'ala is giving us over here. And initially we intended this for some of our students. But Sheikh Muhammad Sa'id al-Madan al-Bouti, he titled the book, he said, لِكُلِّ فَتَى تُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ. And many of his works I've taken like that. When he said, لِكُلِّ فَتَى تُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ, that this book is for every woman who believes in Allah, then to the greatest of our capacity, we will take this message to every woman who believes in Allah. And I believe that this is the part of the message that Sheikh Muhammad Sa'id al-Madan al-Bouti wants you to hear. And so a scholar whom the martyr scholar, some of our teachers that teaches books, other books of his, like he would let us wait 2 years before he would tell us about the death of Sheikh Muhammad Sa'id Ramadan al-Bouti, because he didn't want to overcome, he didn't want the condition to overcome him that overcomes him when he has to speak about his passing away. He was bombed in a masjid, right, whilst he was giving the dars of Quran. So this Sheikh Muhammad Sa'id Ramadan al-Bouti, the moral message that he has to tell you is a message that you have to hear. Is a message that you have to hear. So excuse us for promoting our own works, and excuse us for giving a big sales pitch, and excuse us also in the fact that the book is not like available today. We'll try to arrange with Nazreen or someone that you can try to make some. How many are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. Okay. So 9. So today, inshallah, for the students that came today, I will make the book available to you today for free for the ladies, but with the condition that you have to read the book, right? And if you find any value in it, and then they say there's 3 types of readers. The one is the person who reads to find faults. And if you read my work, you will always find faults. The second is the person who reads to increase their knowledge. And if you read the dumbest person's work, you will always increase your knowledge. If not how to write, then how not to write. The third is the person who reads to become an ambassador of a noble message. And the message that is here is a noble one. So inshallah, that you read the book in order to become ambassadors of the noble message. Excuse me that I haven't said anything much about the actual book or gone to into any part of the text. The second part of the text, I must say, I'll speak until Mona Zakaria comes in. Mona Zakaria comes in, we'll stop the class. The second part of the text is like this, is that at the bottom here, you will see it says annotated or annotated. You know what was first? I used to say annotated. You see, like people like me, the high school English, they're what you call triaches. So this is the English that we know. So excuse us for sounding false also a lot of the time, but we try, right? So they say annotated, right? Annotated with reflections of a striving Muslimah. So annotated with reflections of a striving Muslimah speaks to the part of bringing this book to light. So when we gathered the translation and the courage to make some type of publishing out of it, we gave it to a few of our colleagues, the female colleagues that teach with us. And some of them, they quite liked it. Some of them debated me on some of the words. I debated them back. I won some of the debates. I lost some of them. And that's fine. The second of them, or another of them, is that I gave her, at that time, it was just papers, like a manuscript. And I gave her part of the manuscript, and she wrote some notes on the manuscript, right? Now, what I had wanted to do was, I wanted to take a picture of some of those notes and print it as part of the book, so that you can see it was like really reflections, like line pages and what do you call that, sticky notes that she put. And she handed me the reflections. And I read the reflections for a few days. It wasn't too long, but I read over it many times. And after some istikhara, I put the footnotes in the book as it is, right? Because some of the things, like she attests to being true. And so I thought it might add some life to the text, in that she says, you know what, he's actually speaking the truth over here. Because ladies. So inshallah, we end on that. Subhanallah, we have this, subhanallah, we have the Huh? No, man.